Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you. I want to update you on any number of things, but let's begin with we have experienced 12 consecutive long-duration snow and ice storms, and they have challenged the resources of towns and cities throughout Connecticut in terms of stretching their budgets and depleting their inventory of salt to treat their roads. Those challenges have been compounded further by regional and national shortages of salt due to the unprecedented demand by both the public and private sector. Last night, we requested an emergency disaster declaration from President Obama to address a potential municipal salt shortage. I want to stress municipal. If granted, the declaration could aid in the much-needed procurement of salt for the state's municipalities and tribal nations. Last night, I also requested that the Department of Transportation develop a plan to provide immediate assistance with stopgap supplies of salt to towns across the state. In order to get the ball rolling, the Emergency Operations Center reached out to all of the municipalities last night to collect information on salt shortages. So far, we've heard from 122 towns, and 22 have indicated that they are in need of assistance. Based on the response to that inventory, beginning at noon today, the State Department of Transportation has developed a relief package for all municipalities across Connecticut facing road salt shortages. Any municipality that does not utilize the state contract should contact the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security Regional Coordinator. They know what that means. DOT will coordinate the provision of salt to the town to meet their emergency needs. We are also asking for a federal waiver to weight restrictions so that we can speed the delivery of salt. That request has been forwarded to Washington. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Redeker to provide additional details, but before I do, I want to encourage towns and cities to reach out to us if they need salt. We can be of assistance and plan on being of assistance. Before I turn it over to Commissioner Redeker, we are looking at 2 additional snow events in the offing. One beginning tomorrow as early as 10 a.m. And lasting well into that night, and then another possibility Sunday night or Monday. So we are continuing to catch a fair amount of weather. With that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Redeker, and then I'll come back and take your questions. I think he has some pertinent things to say.
Thank you, Governor. I just wanted to outline the elements of the DOT plan. There are 2 basic elements to the plan. One, there are 88 towns throughout the state who are participating in the state contract for the provision of salt. Typically, providing that salt to towns and to DOT is distributed evenly across the state to DOT and the towns. The DOT has postponed our deliveries because we have sufficient supplies for several storms. We're hoping on 2 in our supply system. We'll postpone our deliveries so that those 88 towns are satisfied immediately beginning at noon today. So beginning at noon today, those on state contract will come in line before DOT to get the supplies that they need. Second, the rest of the towns who are not on the state contract have an opportunity to use DOT surplus resources. Towns will contact emergency management, and then the DOT will contact the town directly to arrange for a town to come to one of 6 facilities across the state of Connecticut, where we stand ready with appointments for towns, front loaders to load their trucks to provide them with sufficient salt based on their needs for the upcoming storm. So that's our plan. It's being executed and initiated as of noon today. We do urge all towns who have needs, because we haven't heard from every town, to contact emergency management. As a fail-safe measure, we will be contacting every town not on the state contract to inform them of our ability to try to aid in the immediate short-term stopgap program. That's the elements of our program. I'll turn it back to the Governor.
One other thing, we were able to expedite at least one additional delivery. You might tell them that.
Sure. We've had a terrific partner. Our supplier is International Salt. They're a new provider for us this year. They actually, in the beginning of the season, took on 22 additional towns as part of the state contract. We had anticipated a new delivery, a new shipment of salt on the 28th of February. One of the reasons we were able to expedite our plan on an emergency basis is that they're bringing a ship in on the 22nd. So they've actually moved up their delivery by about a week, making us a little more comfortable and able to share some of our surplus supplies in the near term. So that's a good partner there, good for the state and good for our towns.
Question for clarification, Governor. You can
Sure.
take it. Last night you told us you had enough for one storm. I think I just heard the commissioner say the state has enough for two storms. So what's the difference?
Well, we've gone back. We've actually further surveyed our supplies. We've actually are taking delivery, so we had a little more in the bin than we thought, and quite frankly, the cleanup today has gone better than we had anticipated. And with temperatures above freezing right now, we're not using salt at the same rate that we might have anticipated in the cleanup.
Okay, one other question. The commissioner just said the ship is coming in on the 22nd.
So we're taking delivery today. Okay, our deliveries are in New Haven Harbor. We're taking a delivery today, which I referenced yesterday would be today or tomorrow. We're taking delivery today. We were then looking at our next delivery on the 28th. Because of steps we've taken with our supplier, we've expedited that to the 22nd. That will allow us to distribute salt to those non-participating communities in that contract. And as the commissioner just outlined, we are deferring our receipt of salt from that supply, from the supply that's coming in today, until such time as the needs of our contract, the communities that piggyback on our contract, their needs are met.
How much salt are we talking about? I mean, how much salt comes in delivery? How much?
What are we getting today? It's about 40.
Today there's about 30,000 tons that are being offloaded and delivered. The second shipment on the 22nd is about 45,000 tons.
And how many tons do you have on hand now?
We're at about 25 to 30,000 tons right now.
You're talking about when you talk about load limits, that's for trucks transporting it from the harbor, right?
It will be for trucks transporting in the harbor, and since we have a while to go, there may be salt that will be transported other ways by truck, and so we want to be in a position to take deliveries or have communities take deliveries of those directly from out of state if that's something that we're going to do.
So the reason some of these towns are running short is because to save money, they sort of buy on the spot market? Is that
I don't know enough about that. I know that the communities that are with us in our contract are in better shape, but some communities, have storms are variable. So some folks have burned through the salt that they've had faster than other towns, and so we're going to make sure that people have salt. But I think we're not planning for 2 weeks. We're planning for 60 days of weather conditions that we may have to respond to, and that's why I took the step of making the declaration. That's why we're working with Washington on a number of things, not the least of which is the weight limitation.
Are these towns that are going to be coming to the DOT barns going to be paying for this, or is this going to be a gift?
No, they'll be expected to pay for it. Whether I doubt that they'll be showing up with checks, but they're piggybacking on our supply, and certainly we would expect to be reimbursed for it.
What does the federal declaration get you? I mean, normally we associate that with an effort to get aid. How does that speed up supply?
Well, for instance, the federal weight limitation. So we have to have a basis on which to ask for a waiver of the federal weight limitation with respect to the size of trucks or the weight of trucks. Since we took kind of a leadership role in talking about salt, there are a number of other states that have now come forward and are talking about salt as well. It may be that there's a role for the government to play to make sure that supplies are gotten to all of the states, the affected states. We're not the only state that is fearful of a shortage. There are expressions of other states. In fact, we are talking to states to coordinate our efforts with respect to truck limitations, how many tons a truck can have. So I'd made a decision that we need to get out in front of this. We already have a plan in place, and we're already filling orders. It's pretty good stuff.
That's the main benefit that it gives you, the basis to request the weight?
That's an immediate benefit. Now, again, I'll talk about how I think about these things. I'm not thinking about it on a two-storm basis. I'm thinking about 45 of 60 or 60 days of occurrences in which we may need to respond in an environment where there have been identified on a state-to-state basis shortages of salt. I want to make sure my state has the salt and that salt is distributed within our borders so that communities can keep their citizens safe. So there may be other things that, for instance, FEMA, a role that FEMA could play or others could play. I just want to have the power to A, ask for that assistance and have that assistance granted. Most immediately, I would hope that today we would get the weight limitation taken care of so that we can move effectively within our own state, but also allow trucks to travel through our state to get to other states.
What's the rate that towns and cities will be paying?
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
It's about $60 a ton.
Almost about. Can you explain, can you step back to the podium and explain three different types of treatments? Because I know you use plain rock salt and you use a liquid that you make to pre-treat. And some of the towns use some green stuff that's some kind of treated salt. I assume you know the difference. I don't. Can you explain it?
Actually, the DOT reviews its practices every year for best practice. We take a look at what seems to be working best in terms of the type of storm, the duration of the storm, and then the material that works best. This year we're using principally rock salt, but we also use magnesium chloride to pre-treat. Some towns have additives that they put into salt. At this point, we do not, but we always look at that. But there's different mixtures of different types, and frankly, as you look at the practices across the Northeast, it's really dependent on climate, on duration of storms, prediction of storms, and the environment that you work around, particularly waterways and natural environments.
Magnesium chloride is when you see the stripes.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I know salt is sodium chloride. What's the difference between sodium chloride and magnesium?
Well, there's different, they perform differently. The pre-treatment is intended actually to get us out there and prevent us from having to plow as quickly in a storm. It actually saves money and resources that way. It also melts to a lower temperature than traditional rock salt. So particularly this year when we had storms below zero, it was effective when rock salt would not be. So,
Shortage of that stuff?
no, we do not have a shortage there.
Where does the salt come from?
Comes from different places. Traditionally, the rock salt comes from either Chile or from the Bahamas.
Is it barged from Chile?
It's a ship. It's shipped up.
Commissioner, there's some legislation this year that would seek to ban fracking waste as a de-icer. Have you ever used fracking waste in?
No, we have not.
roadways or-
No.
The 30,000 tons today that you're getting, does that do 2 storms, 3 storms? Approximately, what's
No,
the
that's what.
volume?
Yeah.
If it was if we were going to take possession of that in its entirety, that would allow us, in round numbers, to be prepared for a total of 4 storms. But we're not.
Storms for 30,000 tons?
No, what we have currently in our stockpile, plus that 30, would give us the ability to respond to 4 sizable storms. Not actually smaller than yesterday, but on average with the earlier storms. But we're not doing that because we're not going to accept or hang on to salt until all of the contract parties that piggyback on our contract, their needs have been filled, and then we'll use whatever we get, in essence, to backload so that we make sure that we have at least enough to cover for 2. So this is the point. We have plenty of salt. Municipalities don't. We're taking steps to make sure that municipalities have salt.
What about the
All right, go ahead, right here.
This may be for the commissioner, but during the last storm or in future storms, have you considered or done anything to limit the use of salt or be more effective in using salt?
Well, let me hit a little bit of that. About 8 years ago, we got out of the sand business because it was causing environmental challenges as well as additional cost of about $10 million a year to clean the salt up. The sand up. So we've gone to salt. Some municipalities use mixtures. We do not. We're salt after the coating is done. And we tend to be very conservative in our use of salt, something that I fully support. And that is that we put enough on and try not to put too much on. If you compare us on a road-to-road basis with some other states, we're fairly conservative in the allocation of salt per square mile.
That's because the entire state drains into an estuary.
Yes, we are a series of valleys, and every valley drains.
Governor or
Sure.
Commissioner, what about overtime? Because I imagine in the last couple of years, with all the storm events that we've had, that overtime has been piling up, and I'm just wondering how your overtime budget is.
Well, we've exhausted, we had exhausted before this storm, or just about exhausted before the storm even, this most recent storm even got here. We had exhausted our $30 million allocation. The allocations are based on running averages. I will tell you honestly that the last 3 years have added to the average, and this year we'll do it again. So having said that, we're going to spend whatever it takes to keep our citizens safe. That's it's a budgetary device to make sure that we have money set aside, but we're certainly not going to fail to plow the roads, spread salt, assist municipalities because of overtime expenses.
Well, you get a lot of storms. That's some years are worse than others, right?
Yes, that's correct. Well, and we've been trending on the worse than others by the decade.
The things around us are all bigger, much bigger. In the case of New Jersey and New York, Massachusetts is still bigger, and they use the same stuff. Are they having the same problem? Having a call like the other industry?
From what we're hearing, municipalities are having problems. Right, but there is a salt shortage as compared to the challenge. All right, so no one. I'm not expert sufficiently to talk about other states. We have had a state contact us about coordinating truck deliveries, so they're anxious that they can see trucks move through our state to get to their states as well, or Vermont. Yeah. Listen. The reason I'm doing what I did was to get on top of this thing. When we started to get calls from communities saying that they were short or running out of salt, I decided to be proactive about it, and that's why I did last night what I did. That's why today we're presenting you with a plan on how we're dealing with it. I think that's why the commissioner, we have a new supplier that we went to. They've agreed to get an additional supply here sooner than they would have otherwise. But all of this could be for naught if we have a storm every 2 days. So, but we're not going to stockpile unreasonably while municipalities are unable to keep their citizens safe. We're one state. So I think we've taken a series of appropriate actions to help municipalities meet their needs. Actually, a couple of municipalities have helped one another. Greenwich is helping Bridgeport, for instance, as we speak. In fact, I tried to put a call into the first selectman to thank him for that. But we're going to work through this, and we're actually disclosing our plan. I want to be very clear. We don't have a shortage. And in fact, as of today, we would have enough enough salt for 4 storms. But for us to be able to react to 4 storms while people can't meet the needs that they currently have would not be supportive of our partners in the municipalities. Last question.
Have we exhausted the salt budget?
All right, we'll let him finish. Have we exhausted the salt budget? I assume we did. Yeah, I assume we have. Sure.
Now with the municipalities coming in
And this is the last.
Yeah.
Make it a good one. Okay.
is there a limit on how much they can take back with them?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, what we'd like to do is distribute enough for them to respond to the most immediate need, which is the storm that's coming. We don't want to be building someone's stockpile ahead of our own, right? So that would be the situation. I mean, we have the obligation in the state of Connecticut to keep our interstate highways and the roads that feed into our interstate highways. That's our obligation to the federal government to do that. But I'm not going to simply do that and allow municipalities in the state of Connecticut not to be able to respond to the needs of their citizenry. So I think we've struck the right balance on a short-term basis. I think we'll breathe a little bit easier when we get to the 22nd and have that additional 45 tons. And in the meantime, if other salt stuffs can be moved into the state, we're going to do that. But we, as a state, are going to be supportive of our municipalities, those who participated in our contract and those that did not. Okay? Great. Thank you very much.